So you've watched endless videos, endless episodes on YouTube and everywhere else about what narcissism is, what toxic relationships are, and you finally feel like, okay, this is not for me, this is not where I want to be, I need to leave the narcissist. However, even though you know this is not what you want, there's still some feelings of fear. How are they going to retaliate? How are they going to respond? Am I being too dramatic? Should I keep trying? Or I've been in the relationship for a long time. Do I really want to disrupt this stability? And stability, that's relative, because being in an unhealthy relationship is not stable, but it is stable possibly for you because you've been in it for a while, right? It's the norm. Well, if you clicked on this episode to understand how to leave a narcissist, get your pen and paper because I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to leave a narcissistic relationship. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new to me, my name is Naila Abdullah. I'm a mental health therapist turned toxic relationship coach. And after overcoming my own personal experience with narcissistic family and romantic relationships, I'm on a mission to help women like you be able to heal from toxic or narcissistic relationships so that you can move on, rebuild your life after a toxic or narcissistic relationship without risking falling back into another toxic relationship. So if that sounds like something that you need, something that you're interested in, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let's get into this episode. Before I go into the steps of leaving a narcissist, I want you to understand that there's two different aspects, two different approaches that we have to take when it comes into stepping out and leaving a narcissistic relationship. In anything in life, it's not just about action, it's not just about doing things, but it's about the mindset. So I'm going to talk about the psychological shifts that needs to be made, the mindset shifts, and then I'm also going to talk about the actual practical action steps that needs to be made. And again, this isn't anything in life. So anytime you were thinking about setting a goal, taking action, always be willing to look at your mindset, right? If it was that simple, that easy as action steps, then none of us will have issues, right? Because there will always be someone to say, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And everyone would just do X, Y, and Z. The reason people cannot do X, Y, and Z to leave a toxic relationship, to become a millionaire, to build a business, to do whatever it is that you want to do is because the mindset is different. It's not just about the action steps. It's not just about the practicality of it, but it's about the psychological component of it. So that is how we're going to break up these steps today. We're going to look at the psychological shift that needs to be made, and then we're going to look at the practical action steps that needs to be made to leave a narcissist. So the first psychological shift that I had to make was tapping into my spirituality. And that, again, that's what I did from my personal experience. I had to tap into my connection, and my spiritual connection is God. That is my higher power. I had to tap into that. Now, I was fortunate enough to have some friends and some family that was supportive of me, that knew what I was going through, that was willing to support any decision that I made. But at the end of the day, I was the only one really in it. And that's probably how you feel too. You may have people that you can call and that you can talk to, but you are the only one that feels what you feel. And even though you may have outside support, you still feel a sense of loneliness. You still feel like, well, I'm the only one really going through this right now. No one really knows what I'm feeling. And that's where the spirituality comes in. That's where God came in for me to remind me that I'm not alone. On a spiritual level, I have Him next to me. I can depend on Him to guide me, to protect me, to give me patience, to remind me that this is a temporary situation and that I've been through hard situations before. And that's a really helpful tool to use to look at your resilience. I'm sure you've been through other difficult situations before, maybe not as difficult as this one, because in my own personal experience with a narcissistic romantic relationship, that was probably the most heart-wrenching experience that I had when I had to transition out of that. So even though you've been through other hard situations before, maybe this feels like the worst, but at the end of the day, you know that you did have your God, your higher power, your spirituality there to support you, right? Beyond what people could do in the flesh, in the physical, you had a spiritual connection, a spiritual guide, and a spiritual protection over you. Now, there are different ways to tap into spirituality, to stay connected. What I use for myself personally and what I will recommend to you, that can look like in the form of reading daily devotionals, listening to sermons virtually, reading the Bible, being surrounded with other spiritual people. And again, it can look different. You have to do what feels right for you. But the purpose, the bottom line of doing all of this is to feed your soul, right? So the same way when we wake up in the morning, we need to eat breakfast, we need to eat snacks, we need to eat lunch, We have to continue to fuel our body, make sure our body has energy to function, our brain can function, right, when we are well fed and we have the nutrition that we need. That is the same thing in the spiritual realm. We need to stay connected. We need to continue to feed our thoughts, our spirit, because we live in a world where it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to forget about God's word. And the more that we expose ourselves to it, the more that we are connected to him. The second step to leaving a narcissist is another psychological shift, another mindset shift. And that is where you are in the phase of change to take action. Now, when we talk about change, when they studied how human beings make change, there's different phases. There's first the pre-contemplation stage where you don't even realize that there needs to be a change. The next step is the contemplation stage where you realize something is not wrong and you're starting to contemplate, should I make a change? And there's a few other steps along the way. One of the last steps is the ready to take action phase, the action phase, right? So this is the phase that you are possibly in. If you're watching this episode, you are in the phase where you're ready to take action. You want to stick with that. Right? You want to remind yourself, why am I here? How did I get here? Where I am ready I'm watching this episode. I'm trying to figure out, how do I go about leaving this narcissist? And you want to continue to remind yourself that you don't deserve the treatment that you've been getting, that you did not just come here because you're being dramatic, which is what a manipulative person may try to convince you, or even some of the people around you, some of your support system may also make you feel like you're being too drastic. And that's because they don't understand. So they may not be trying to manipulate you, but it's simply they're naive. They don't understand the severity of the situation, right? So you want to constantly remind yourself that, okay, I am at this phase right now because I realize I don't deserve this treatment. I've put a lot of effort into it. I've tried a lot, and I realize that nothing is changing, and I'm ready to take action. So that is a mindset shift, not only that you want to make, and again, you're probably there already because you're watching this episode, but you want to maintain that. Don't allow anyone to confuse you and make you feel like, okay, maybe that was too drastic of a step. If you're here now, if you're in this space right now that you're ready to take action, if you're watching this episode right now, it is probably because you are ready to take action. So stick with that. The third step to leaving a narcissist is, again, another psychological shift, another mindset shift, and that is to adopt a warrior mindset. Now, warrior, we hear that a lot, right? We hear it on movies and in Christianity. But of course, typical me, I like to research definitions, because a lot of times we're using words and we don't really understand the real definition behind it. And warrior simply means a person who is engaged in warfare. Now, that might sound a bit much to some people, and I'm not saying this from a violent, aggressive standpoint, but what I do want you to understand is that this is war for them, right? Now, if it were up to you, this would be an amicable split, right? Or not a split at all, right? More than likely, you were in this relationship to make it work, and clearly it hasn't, right? So if it were up to you, it would not even be a war. It wouldn't even come to the point where it is now. But when it comes to a narcissist, when they see that their power, their control is slipping through their fingers, because that's how they're seeing this, right? They are going to turn this into war. And it may be hard for you to believe because you may not see signs of it now, but trust me and believe me, they are all about ego. They are all about control. And the minute that someone is saying, no more, you cannot treat me the way that you're treating me anymore, they're not going to perceive that as, wow, let me change the way I am. Let me do what I need to do to get her back. Let me become a better person. No, that will come from a healthy person. From a narcissist, from any person with a toxic personality disorder or traits, they are going to view that as war. So you need to adopt a warrior mindset. You need to be prepared that this is not going to be an amicable split. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't approach it from a civilized standpoint. You don't have to go into this split with anger and aggression, but you need to be prepared mentally that it can turn left, and that you are willing to use whatever arsenal, whatever tools you need to, and I know that's a war term, right? So you're not, again, this is not coming from an aggressive standpoint, but you do need to have that mindset that, okay, even though I'm a nice person, I'm kind, I'm ready for war if it comes down to it. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to protect myself if it comes down to it. Now, if you're in the beginning phases of this split, you may be wondering, like, what is Naila talking about? What type of war? How what could he possibly do? And just to give a few examples that I've seen in my personal and working with clients is that they sometimes may start to spread lies about you, right? They may try to turn your family against you. They may try to turn their family against you. They may step into another relationship just to make you jealous. That's a very common one. Make you jealous and confused because they want you to think that you were the problem. Like, look, here I am moving on. I'm happy, living happily ever after. If I'm able to do it with this woman, that means that you were the problem. That's all a manipulation tactic. Some of them may also take the aggressive approach. They may try to threaten you. They may try to stalk you. So these are all different things that they may do to make you feel like you are making the wrong decision, to frighten you back into getting into the relationship. And one of the things that I've learned is that sometimes it works because the fear really works on you and then you step back into it. But when you really think about it from a logical standpoint, again, I want you to turn down the emotional volume and turn up the logical volume, right? When you really look at relationships, any relationship, if someone wants you in their life, the way to get you back is with love, is with care, is with understanding, not with threats, not with putting fear into you. That's not love. So by adopting the warrior mindset, that means you are simply taking actions right now. You are making decisions right now that is based on survival, right? What is best for me? What do I need to do for myself? What do I need to do to protect myself and my children if children are involved? You would, again, turning down that emotional side of you and you would turning up the logical side of you, the same way you would in war. People who are in war, people who are soldiers, they're not making any decisions based on their feelings and let's wave the white flag and work it out and sing kumbaya. That would be great if the world functioned that way, but it doesn't. And that is the same thing for this. So again, you're not changing who you are. You're not becoming an aggressive person. You're not approaching it with anger, because holding anger, although anger will come up, that's a normal phase of letting go of a relationship, of a normal phase of grief and loss. Anger will come up, but that is not what I'm encouraging for you. I'm simply encouraging you to tap into your warrior mindset with in mind that this will become war at some point. From them, and you need to be prepared for that. You need to make decisions from a logical standpoint based on you surviving this season in your life. So with the fourth step to leave a narcissist, we're now stepping into the practical action, right? So we made the mindset shifts that needs to be made, the psychological shifts that needs to be made. Now we're stepping into the actual practical, actionable steps that we need to make. And that first plan of action, that first plan of practical action is planning out the logistics to move out of the house. So you're thinking about, where am I going to go? And sometimes it's helpful to just find something temporarily, right? Whether it's a relative or a friend, someone you can trust, or something temporary that you can move into. Sometimes we feel like we have to have this big plan, but right now, again, you are in survival mode. So even if you haven't found an actual house or somewhere to go, sometimes it's just about moving away from that person, and that might be a temporary situation. You want to look at, your items, where you're going to store them. And with that said, it's also important to remember, again, this is a survival mode phase that you're in, right? Survival mode gets a bad rap, but it helps us. It helps us in dangerous situations. Of course, it's not something you want to stay in. It's temporary, right? But being in survival mode sometimes means just taking your personal belongings, right? Your financial documents, your legal documents, certain things that have very high sentimental value to you, clothes, furniture, all of that. You can buy that back. That is not important right now. Right now, it's about your mental, psychological health, and even in some cases, your physical safety. Another helpful tip too is sometimes speaking to your job, your HR department, about what you're going through, depending on your relationship with your work. But you'll be surprised, sometimes jobs, HR departments, they have resources that can help you from an emotional standpoint, providing emotional support. They may have connections with, legal offices and counseling offices and different things like that to give you some support while you are making this transition. If they understand what's going on too, they may also be willing to give you a leave of absence, some type of time off, so you can set yourself up. Now, as you are going in the house for your personal belongings, depending on, the situation, do not hesitate to get assistance when you go in there. A lot of times people underestimate the severity of a toxic or narcissistic person, in particular narcissistic people. As calm as they may be, as normal as they may portray themselves to be, when they see that they are losing control, they become desperate. So do not underestimate the rage of a narcissist and how they can react. So if you have the slightest inclination that they may become not only physically aggressive, but also verbally aggressive and threatening, do not hesitate to have someone come in there with you while you get those things, or if you go while they're at work, while they're not at home. But do not underestimate that things can get dangerous when you go in to get your personal belongings. And again, keep it to what really matters. Okay, this is survival mode. This is getting you out of a toxic environment. Okay, do not jeopardize your mental health because you are attached to materialism, to materialistic things. That is not more important than your emotional and your psychological well-being. One of the things people may not realize about narcissists is that they're bullies, and bullies are cowards. So by calling, for legal assistance to go in the house and get your things, whether it be the police or someone else, it also kind of lets them know that you are serious about leaving, that you will take it there if you need to. Again, this is not for you to become an aggressive person or to go into it with anger, but you also need to be strategic, right? You also need to show that, I've tried to make this work. I'm about peace. But if you're about war, then I'm ready for you, right? And they need to know, they need to see that you're willing to call the police, you're willing to take it there if they decide to take it there. So that's another reason. It's not just about protecting yourself, but it's also about sending a message that I will get the help. I will get whatever help that I need to get, right? As long as you leave me alone and you give me my space and you respect me, we'll be okay. But the minute you decide to cross those boundaries, don't for a second think that I won't do what I need to do to protect myself. And again, like most bullies, they're cowards. When they see that, they will think twice. Again, they will try you at some point because that's their personality. Again, you can't ask a snake not to bite you. You can't ask an alligator or crocodile not to bite you, or a shark. That's in their nature. It's the same way with us human beings. If that's their personality, if they have narcissistic personality traits or disorder, they are going to try you at some point. But by setting those boundaries, by sending those messages that, hey, I'm ready for you if you come for me in that way, they're going to think twice about it. The fifth step to leaving a narcissist is another practical action step, and that is to cut or minimize your contact with them. And the purpose of this is to avoid further manipulation, right? Just because you leave a house, a residence with the narcissist, that does not mean that things are suddenly over, that they're suddenly going to stop harassing you, manipulating you, trying to break you. If anything, they're going to crank it up even further now because they realize, oh shoot, I'm losing control over this person. How dare they try to pull away from me because they feel entitled. That is their personality, and their ego is now bruised because who are you to say you don't want this anymore, right? So the purpose of cutting off contact with them is to avoid you being further manipulated and controlled by them, because they can still manipulate you and control you even though you are not living under the same roof, or even though you are technically no longer a couple, right? They have the ability to do that. So you want to minimize that. Now, when we talk about minimizing contact, the only time I recommend that is if there are children involved, right? If there are children involved, from a legal standpoint, you may still have to be in contact with them, especially if you are married. But I believe even with children involved, with custody issues and things like that. So if you feel like having any contact with them regarding the children is just not working, do not wait. Go ahead and seek legal advice. Explain your situation and explain, what you would like to see happen, or at least see what your options are. Do not wait on that. Another reason for cutting off contact with them, or in the case of children, minimizing it, is that you want to avoid sharing, if you can, depending on the situation, you want to avoid sharing with them where you're going, right? For safety reasons. Again, even if they have never been physically violent with you before, it's kind of like a toddler, right? A toddler can go from being very sweet and cuddly, oh mommy, I love you, to throwing a full-blown tantrum, right? They go from 0 to 100. And that's the same thing with narcissists when they feel like they are losing control. So no matter how calm they may seem, you never know how far they will go. So again, I've been saying that through this entire episode. Do not underestimate the rage of a narcissist. Cutting off contact also prevents you from feeling the need to try to explain why I'm leaving, right? And that's normal. That is normal because you want peace. You know, your personality is you want peace. You want peace. You want an amicable split. Even if you didn't want the split, for you, at the very least, if we're going to split, let's do it amicably. So you are trying your best to explain yourself to them, to reason with them, to get them to understand you. So even though you are making this transition, you will still be tempted to get them to understand where you're coming from. However, while you may have the intentions on making this amicable and trying to get him to understand you, this is simply an entrance, an opportunity to manipulate you more, to stay connected with you. Because trust me, they want to stay connected, not because of love, not because they want to make it work, but because they want to maintain control. They want to be the ones to steer this ship. The sixth step to leaving a narcissist is, again, another practical action step, and that is to find support. Support is very important in this phase in your life, this season in your life, because you can start to really think that you were the problem, even though on some level you know you're not. But you may, even without them saying it, you may start to think, is it me? I remember feeling like I was in a twilight zone, and then I was talking sometimes to some of the wrong people, his family members that, typically I had a good relationship with, but their advice even was like, I'm the problem because I'm doing this or I'm doing that. Things were just not adding up. So you start to feel very confused. You start to feel like you're in a twilight zone. You just can't imagine or fathom that you're going through this. More than likely, you are a high achieving, ambitious woman. You're successful in other areas of your life. That's a very common trend that I see in toxic and narcissistic relationships. Usually, and again, I'm always speaking to women, so if you're a man, you can turn this around. But for the ladies that I've worked with, typically they have it together in other areas of their life, and they're just like, how did I end up in this situation? Like this part of my life, this relationship part of my life just does not match the other parts of my life, the social parts of my life, the career parts of my life, the way my resilience, my goal achievements, it just doesn't match. How did I end up here? So you feel very confused, and it helps to have solid people to tap into for support. One thing I want you to take away from this suggestion about finding support is that I want you to pick people based on how they make you feel, whether they're healthy for you. And I say that because culturally, societally, we are taught to depend on people or consider people supports based on things like because they're related to us, or they've been friends with us for a long time, or they've been through maybe similar situations, so maybe they get it. But sometimes that criteria doesn't work. Sometimes people are not equipped to support us in every phase and every season of our lives. And it doesn't mean you need to cut everybody off, but you need to be aware of who are you tapping into for support, right? If you have multiple friends, you have different friends for different things in your life, right? Not everyone can fulfill every part of who you are and what you need. So again, look at how you feel with the supports that you're picking. And support also doesn't always mean that you need to talk about the situation with them. It just simply means that they make you feel good, right? They uplift you. They give you, they help you to be a better person. Beware of those supports that kind of they're angry with you, they're bitter with you, and they're kind of keeping you there, right? Sometimes friends will be angry with you, right? Because that's a girlfriend, right? If you're pissed, they're pissed. But at the same time, you don't want someone who enjoys being in that angry phase, right? Because that's not where you want to stay. You want that to be exactly that, a phase, not a permanent place. So be careful about who you're talking to about the situation. Sometimes people also don't understand your situation, right? They've never been through something like this themselves. And again, that doesn't mean that they can't support you, but they just can't they can't provide the type of support you need in that situation. So maybe they're the friend that you just go and have a good time with, right? But again, the bottom line is make sure you find healthy support, not people that are going to mislead you, not people that are there to support you because they're forcing themselves in there. Sometimes you have manipulative people that see that you're down now, right? That you're broken, and this is an opportunity for them to get in. There's a lot of juggling here. So you really have to be careful with who you find for support, but just make sure you are basing your decision making on your support system based on who is healthy for you. What do I need right now? And can this person give it to me right now? And if they can't, again, not everyone you need to cut off, but you may have to just temporarily separate yourself, because again, right now you are in survival mode. If you have children, you're also in survival mode for them. And right now you are vulnerable, you are delicate, and you need to protect your emotional, your psychological, your spiritual entity right now. You need to protect that. And on the topic of support, of course, outside of personal people that you have a personal connection with, there's also professional support, which is helpful because they don't have an emotional connection to you. And sometimes that is helpful because they can give you a perspective that the people that are emotionally connected to you cannot give you, right? So that can come in the form of counseling, of coaching, of therapy, of groups. Sometimes groups are helpful to be around other women that are experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing, and you can use that to support each other. We're all different. We all need different tools at different stages of our lives, but don't underestimate the benefit also of professional outside help. With that said, if you're at a space where you feel like I just want to get past this pain that I'm feeling, this emotional pain, it's maybe even manifesting physically for me, feeling depressed, anxious, confused, like a failure, that I worked so hard on this relationship, I gave it so many even when I saw red flags, I still gave it chances. I spent so much time into this, but you still feel like a failure. You may feel embarrassed. These are all feelings that are normal. I've been there before. You can go ahead and click the link in my description box below to join, or at least get connected and find out a little bit more about my individual coaching program called Broken to Breakthrough. And that's where I work with you one-on-one, individually, customized for your particular situation to help you to get past this situation. And not just about getting past it, not just about healing, that's all great, but also making sure that you no longer have the mindset that allows you to tolerate this type of situation anymore, that helps you to change the mindset that you won't be stuck in this situation before. Because so often I see people go from toxic relationship to toxic relationship to toxic relationship. And it's not about blame, but in order to really have growth in our lives, we have to look at, okay, how am I contributing to these patterns, these negative patterns within my life, right? So it's not just about getting out and healing, but it's about making sure that you don't run the risk of being stuck in a situation like this again. So if that's something that you want, go ahead into my description box below to get connected. There's also my email there and different ways of contacting me and getting connected to me. As someone who understands this from not only a professional standpoint, but also a personal standpoint, I am more than willing to support you through it. And if this episode was beneficial to you, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And if you know someone that can benefit from this, go ahead and share it with them as well. And I will see you in the next episode. Take care.